Welcome back to Give It To Me Bi.
Coming up today, being bi plus and coming out later in life, whenever later landed for you.
If you've ever felt you missed the window, or you're only out to a few people, or you're still working out whether to say it out loud, this episode is for you.
So what we're covering, relief, grief, chaos, limbo, pride, sometimes more than one at once, plus the real life bits, who to tell, work, family, finding your people.
So coming up, validation over rules. There is no one right way. And if self-doubt sounds familiar, you're in a very crowded company.
Oh, yeah. I know her. Yeah.
Yeah, she's familiar.
Besties.
This is Give It To Me Bi, the podcast where we talk about anything and everything from a bi plus perspective. Now, let us give it to you bi.
Hi, Chad.
Hi,
Good
Steve.
evening.
How are you going? Good evening.
good.
It is evening.
It is evening, and everyone
Yes.
just missed how I made a complete fool of myself. You started reading from. We do a little. So for the listeners at home, we've got a little episode plan, and very little of our episodes are scripted, but we sort of have a little mini script for that intro. And Chad did the welcome to Give It To Me Bi, and I was like, thank you so much.
To be fair, I sent you 7 versions of this, and they all had different links, and it was so you're forgiven, Steve, for my mistake.
I don't know what I'm looking at. We're just rolling with it, everyone. But
We are
we're
just
very
rolling with
happy for you all. We're just happy that you're all here, and we're talking about a really important topic tonight. So it's a topic that we can, of course, relate to. Coming out is a universal experience, not just with sexuality, by the way, but of course we're talking about coming out as bi plus or multi-gender attracted. But you can come out in many ways, and we've both had to go through it, and in many ways we'll continue to go through it. But lots to cover tonight.
I'm excited to tackle this one. This is one that both at the same time breaks my heart and warms my heart. It warms my heart because I have seen in our Facebook group, in our email subscriptions, an incredible influx of people who are joining and sharing their stories, who this is their experience. It is coming out later in life and coming out after the supposed period of their life, the life stage of coming out of when you're a teenager, or the teen queer movies you might see of that's the typical coming out moment. And so it really warms my heart to see how many more people 30, 40, 50, 70 years old are really engaging with themselves, which is cool, and coming out. But it does break my heart that we live in a world that has made people feel like it's unsafe, unrealistic, unpractical to come out for any myriad reasons. There's too many to name. And just really cool that you found us. And I just want you to know that we see you. Here's the episode for you. When you put in the little questionnaire, when you join the Facebook group, what you'd like us to talk about, this is it. It turns into content serving you specifically. So we are here to do coming out later in life. And if you're new to the podcast, we've been on hiatus for about a year. One of the things we kick off each episode with is something called our Bi-lights, which is our bi plus highlights of the week. Steve, what's your Bi-light for the week?
I just realized, so we also, to the old listeners will know that we try and throw as many puns in here as possible. So Bi-lights, but I need to work on it. I also need to work on my Star Trek references. But we had someone in the group post a very special Star Trek post.
By Star Trek memes. I was like, Steve's gonna wet his chair.
Okay, everyone, please just send me all your Star Trek references. What was my Bi-light this week, Chad? Continuing to discover more about myself with my recent ADHD diagnosis, something you and I have talked about, and just all of those realizations of it just explains so much. And just like understanding my bisexuality, which in for me, happened in my mid to late 20s. You could look back and you're like, oh, right, that's how that happened. And there's been a lot of that going on. And, for the other ADHDers, which I think many of our listeners probably are, because there's a lot of research showing a massive overlap between bisexuality and having ADHD. Getting to understand that experience is very, very exciting. Hyper focusing on it. I'm in that stage. It'll soon just become a normal part of my life. What's your bi like, Chad?
I have two smaller ones, or two. Let's just call it two ones. The first one is in prepping for today's episode. Did a bit of a call out in the Facebook group asking for people's experiences in coming out, and it always warms my heart and makes me a little bit teary actually when people say that we in any way played a part in their coming out. And one such listener posted that listening to our podcast and the Bisexual Killjoy podcast gives them courage and the tools to eventually come out. And and I just want to say, I love you. You're like, oh, I want to wrap you up in a big cuddle. Like, that's so sweet. And I'm so proud of you for doing that. I'll always say that's you. I mean, you did that. Like, and we might be here to encourage and support, but you took that step. Don't take that away from yourself. And that is available to everyone, which is really exciting. The other thing, and we'll mention a little bit later in the podcast, is Steve and I are involved in a very exciting project at the moment. And I've been pretty disengaged from the BiPlus community for the past 12 months for family health reasons. And it was the first thing I started to dip my toes back into when Steve and this project kind of invited me along. And it was one of the things that gave me the confidence to kind of get back into doing the podcast. And it really, I was about to say warms my heart for the third time in one episode. And we're barely 10 minutes in.
That's kind of what we do here, Chad. Yeah, it's about warming hearts.
It really, one, ignites that passion again, galvanizes the passion and the reason why we do this. Is that like, it doesn't take many people to make a really big difference. It just takes a few people who are really on fire for something, pooling their resources and gathering together. And so we'll talk about that project a little bit later in the podcast. But those two things are my highlights for this week. And so,
can I draw on the warming of the heart?
Please, warm all the hearts, my love.
So I'm a little bit obsessed right now with Ray and her new song "Click Clack Symphony" featuring Hans Zimmer.
I am so fucking good,
and Hans Zimmer, who I'm obsessed with. Also, Dune fan, everyone. Bring all the Dune memes. And the song ends on this line. She'll be all right, no riding shining armored knight. She will save herself this time. And in fact, tonight she did confirm, the cold never lasts, my darling. It just teaches the heart how to burn.
Ooh.
So it's all about warming hearts.
Whoa.
The winter will pass.
That's a little deep. Wow. Yeah, she's fantastic.
Beautiful.
And yeah, I don't know tons about her, but anytime I listen to her music, it's one of those like, how dare you? How dare you be this good?
Yeah.
Like her and Olivia Dean, I put that on like, you're not allowed to be this talented. Like, that's not fair for the rest of us.
I'm putting Rosalia on that list as well. Like music that's blowing me away at the moment. Pop music that is just like pushing it every rule, every extreme.
Hayley Williams' new album. So I pretty exclusively collect vintage musical theatre vinyl records. I've got like maybe 1,000 vinyl records that's musical theatre.
He's not lying, everyone. 1,000.
I rarely buy new albums, and this year I bought 2 new albums. One is Olivia Dean, the other one is Hayley Williams' new record. Hayley Williams is probably, I said this on our music episode, probably my favorite voice my favorite singer. She is just something else. And so, the girls are really bringing it this year. There's some good new music out.
Yeah. Oh, and one more thing. Delta Goodrem representing Australia at Eurovision with the song Eclipse.
Really?
You might not have seen it. I urge you, after we record this chat, to go watch the music video on YouTube. They're saying Australia will probably be top 5.
For some reason, I've just never been a massive Delta head. Something about it. I don't know. Like, maybe that is totally misguided. I love everyone, but like, something. I don't know.
No, I'm with you on that. Never been a Delta head until now because I am a major Eurovision fanatic, and so I'm Team Delta. I'm getting her face tattooed on my.
Count me in. I'm Team Delta.
On my arm next.
Chad 5 seconds ago is absolutely wrong. Chad now sold. Bought in. Easily swayed.
My opinion will turn on a dime. On a dime.
I'll be fair. That first album was exceptional.
Of course. Icon. All right, let's get into this very important episode.
Let's do it. So, yes, as we said earlier, we're talking about coming out as bi plus later in life. And we're kind of loosely saying later in life because there is no one right way, one right time. Later is what's the word I'm trying to look for? It's subjective. Thank you. That's the word. Later in life to someone could just be later than I intended or later than I would have liked to have. But this could be anyone from their 30s through to their 70s. It could be maybe you think coming out in your 30s is devilishly young. Someone might think like, wow, I'm old rickety bones Chad here in my 30s and coming out. There's no one right way. That's what I'm trying to say. And if you identify as coming out later in life in any way you spin those words, this is for you. We want this episode very intentionally to not be one that's like packed with research or packed with debates and packed with arguments and here's how you fight this biphobic comment. This episode really is trying to do, I guess, two things: is to show you how loved you are and how much your experience is an authentic one, a true one. And we're wanting to kind of mirror back to you things that we hear from a lot of people in the community. So perhaps you hear maybe, someone else has a similar experience to me. There is other people out there that I could perhaps connect with. But also just like remind you that like there are no rules and there's no timeline. There's no boxes you have to tick. If there was, we'd all be failing. We'd all be losing because there's no metric to authenticity, metric to coming out or telling people your story. So I just want to kind of preface the episode as we kick into it that like we want this to be a big warm hug, really.
And when it comes to coming out, it's quite funny. I came out at 20? Came out as bi at 26. I came out initially as gay. If to listeners of the podcast, you'd know my backstory, and I would consider myself as coming out as quite late. All of my friends had already come out. I was in a community already. I was in the queer community already, and then had this big realization. It was a big shift in my life that caused quite a lot of changes and a lot of grief and a lot of incredible love. But realizing or naming that you're bi later, and however you define later, can really hit you. I know it hit me, and it can hit you with relief and panic. It can put you into a limbo. Or, there are those responses we get like, nothing in my life has changed, so why say it out loud? It puts into question the notion of coming out, especially there's a discussion in the queer community right now about, should we actually throw out the notion of coming out? And that's all well and good with parts of our community where, say, 85% of gay men are out to the people closest to them. But for bi men, I've only got the data for bi men on hand at the moment, only 20% of bi men are out to the people closest to them. And so, in our community, it's happening at different ways, which is why it's important for us to emphasize tonight and on this episode that it's about your own context. What does later look out for you, and what does out look like for you? Because all of these things can be true at once. It can be great, it can be amazing, it can be awful, it can be horrible. It can mean nothing, it can mean everything.
I like what you said about the label part. One of the comments say when you put a call out to our community is that being able to name something allowed someone to explore it and honor it in themselves. And I thank you to that person for saying that, because I'm actually a believer in the middle step between now and the future utopia of no labels is we need to give communities language to be able to find each other, find themselves. I remember my brother years ago, he wouldn't mind me saying this because we've talked about it a lot over the years. He'd be like, why do you have to give everything a name? Like, doesn't that like oppress you more, or boxes just divides people? He since doesn't think that. But I would say, look, labels can be freedom for people. It can also be a little hand up. You know what I mean? Like, hi, I'm over here. Someone please find me. And so I'm quite fond of labels in that sense. There's so many good arguments against it, but I think until we can get people into community, into authentic living, take away prejudice for those people, then like, you know, I mean, like they wouldn't need to find safety in these niche communities. They would already have it, and they wouldn't be looking for it. So yeah, I love that this person wrote into us saying that having the language allowed them to go, wait a second, I think that's me.
Yeah, I even steer away from using the word label. I just call it a description. I'm using the best word that we have in our language available to me to describe my experience. I'm not labeling myself. I'm not waving I do wave flags, but you know, it's just to describe something. I'm not what's in the tin, you know, what's in there, what's inside Steve. There's a lot going on in here. One of the things is bisexuality, and so I'm bi. That's just my description.
I think it's kind of like what you said before about your ADHD diagnosis is like, even though we've kind of joked about like, of course you're ADHD, and I kind of did the same thing with my friends for a long time. Of course I'm ADHD, blah, blah, blah. But having someone confirm it or someone affirm it, you then almost get given this permission slip to go, let me look back over the rest of my life and go, oh, that is true of me. Oh, and that's where that popped up then and there and there and there. And I'm very, I'm against people saying, oh, you didn't know? We knew you were queer the whole time. Like when someone comes out as gay, it's like, oh, I knew. It's like, you're a piece of work, that person. So like, don't do it to other people, but you can do it to yourself. Like someone commented, it's like, I should have known my love for musical theater and Britney Spears posters should have given something away. To that person, I say, we are twins. Why aren't we best friends? Was also like, I remember
you're home.
I'm obsessed with musical theater, but I told this joke to someone the other day that Hilary Duff was like my ultimate, but also her boyfriend at the time, John Madden, was in my favorite band, Good Charlotte, and I had both their posters on the wall when I was a kid, and I kissed them both goodnight. Anyway, that's a little bit embarrassing. But yeah, that like, sure, there are signs.
We're leaving that
internally in your life that you can go, oh, that's actually a confirmation of that experience, not something that someone else got to name or tell me was my experience. Yeah. But also, again, there's no like playbook. You can like musical theater and be the straightest dude out there. Like they're not. There's no recipe for being bisexual. Though that sounds like a really fun witch's brew if there was one.
And we had someone write in, someone in their mid-40s, and they mentioned that allowing themselves to think through their attractions. So that permission that you were talking about, that permission to actually scrutinize yourself and go, you know, tell yourself this is what they said. You know, I'm bi, and that to them that brought them shock and relief and happiness, and then it gives them permission to tell people. So they told their a friend online, and then they move to a person in real life, and then they move to telling their spouse of 20 plus years. And it was a big deal, but it was an okay outcome for them. There are people that they haven't told yet, and that is totally okay. There are all of these different experiences where, once you are given that permission, you can then decide what to do with it yourself. I really like, some of these. Thank you so much to everyone that has submitted comments and their own experiences. These are just amazing to read through. And like you said at the top of the episode, Chad, can be really heartbreaking, but then also really heartwarming.
Yeah, one that really resonated for me was someone wrote in that they came out as a teenager, but then rejected that coming out. For them, they said it was for religious reasons. And then a second coming out as an adult. And I guess I had a somewhat similar experience. I was out as a teenager and then started going to church when I was 17. And it's not that I went back in the closet, but it became something I didn't, I guess, honor, or I didn't speak about or spend much time on. And then so, as we spoke about in last week's episode, it became somewhat of a revelation for people in my life when I eventually did start talking about it again. And so, often, and a lot of queer people have to come out over and over and over. But for bi plus people, this happens to an extra degree because a lot of factors that disprove or prove. Obviously, I'm big bunny is disprove and prove what your sexual identity is, and so people expect you to come out in alignment with what their understanding of sexuality is, which is very often monosexual, so gay, lesbian, or straight, or 50-50 bi, which as well is something that is actually rarer than almost anything.
That's a whole other episode, everyone. But the whole 50-50 thing, no. When people ask me that question, like, but which one do you prefer? I'm like, is it raining? What are they wearing? Am I looking at it? Is one a blonde or a brunette? There are so many factors. And this is the thing with monosexuality. And if you've come from a monosexual identity into a bisexual identity or experience, you can actually, it really lets you scrutinize, again, I'm going to use that word, scrutinize what your sexual and your romantic and your aesthetic and your whatever attractions are, because these are all very different things. For monosexual people, it's often pretty cut and dry, especially when it comes to gender. Obviously, mono, they have attraction to a single gender. But for us, it can give us absolute freedom.
Steve, I might pause on that point because I'm recognizing now something we didn't put in the planning doc, but I have recognized on previous episodes when we've mentioned it, we've had an influx of people reach out to us say, oh, wait a second, maybe I'm bi. And that is the split model. And just breaking that down really quick is that there are, and maybe we'll break it down in two ways. The one that we talk about when it comes to study, the AIB model, and then the split attraction model. So I'll let Steve do the AIB model because he's very well versed in explaining it. My understanding of the split attraction model, you'll hear a lot of people talk about biromantic, bisexual, panromantic, all that kind of stuff, is that there's kind of these different paradigms of attraction. There's like sexual attraction, a romantic attraction, and someone might be bisexual and they just identify themselves as bisexual as like a blanket term. And that usually covers what we talked about in the last episode and previous episodes, is that like I have the potential to be attracted to more than one gender. However, some people experience this very differently, and some people might have a bisexual attraction, hetero-romantic attraction. So they may have sexual attractions that go across gender, but romantic attractions that don't. And the opposite can be true. They might be romantically attracted to folks of multiple genders, but only sexually attracted to people of one gender. That's the kind of the social split attraction model. And that when I remember we said it on one episode and multiple people wrote into me being like, I thought I was an ally. Turns out I'm bi. Because I didn't know that was possible? I didn't know that was a thing. The same when you say like, hey, you don't have to be 50-50. You can be 95-5. And then people go, oh yeah, well maybe I am bi actually. A bunch of my girlfriends like, I fancy the ladies a lot for 5% of the time. I'm like, babe, I think you might be bi.
Yeah.
Steve, what's the AIB model?
The AIB model is a really well-informed and very well-utilized model of attraction. It was developed especially around understanding bisexuality, but it can be used to understand general human sexuality. AIB stands for attraction, identity, behavior. So that means that those three things in separation or combined can make up someone's sexuality, basically. To be bisexual, and these aren't cut and dry rules, but broadly speaking here, to be bisexual, you can experience one of these three things, two of these three things, or all three. You can have that multi-gender attraction, but you don't have to identify as bi. And you might not, and you don't even have to have, you don't have to be behaviorally bisexual, which is a research term that we use, which sounds horrible, which means,
which means like acting on it, right?
Yeah. Sucking and fucking around all of the genders. I'm not sure if we're keeping in the line that I just said, everyone. We might bleep it out.
I mean, that's a really good point because, like, for me, I am a bisexual human being. I have been in a monogamous relationship for 13 years. I'm not behaviorally bisexual. I haven't, when it comes to these research studies, they ask, hey, have you had sexual relations with someone outside of your partner in the last 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, whatever it might be? And it's no. And so I am not behaviorally bisexual. It's like, well, I am in other ways, plenty of other ways, but just not with other people. And so it's a really interesting way, a really interesting framework that I love. And I'm always hesitant to say that that's bisexual, but it falls under the bisexual umbrella because there are a lot of people who are behaviorally bisexual. And Steve and I are so fascinated in this topic, and we'll probably do an episode on it in the future, who are behaviorally bisexual, but identify as straight or identify as gay. And I am deeply fascinated by that topic. And we need to do an episode on that. Sorry, I did interrupt, Steve. To wrap up the AIB part.
No, that's okay. But also one thing to note here, everyone, because you think, where do I fit in on that? But the AIB model is inherently retrospective as well. So you just mentioned that you're not behaviorally bisexual, but that doesn't tell us what's going to happen in the future. And so that has impacts on, say, because I work in the health space, just because you have a history of not being behaviorally bisexual does not mean that your future doesn't hold that. So that doesn't mean that we can't target you. I know it's really important to note that your
I never thought about that. It's retrospective.
Yeah. The description that you're currently using, the description that you listener are currently using to understand yourself is your understanding up to that moment, and you have no idea where things go. But when we're talking about, we keep on using that word permission, that permission to come out and describe yourself or label yourself, tell yourself or tell everyone or tell one person, opens up countless possibilities into your future, and you should be counted.
Love that. One of the parts of this conversation that I hear a lot of people talk about in terms of it's some type of failure that I'd love to reframe as actually perhaps empowering, is people feeling like they're not out to enough people, right? And it's this idea that coming out has there's like a number attached to it, that like I came out to everyone, and there's this kind of general gesturing to people in my life. I came out to them, right? To them who are not me. I
had the Skyrider.
Yeah. And if we not like unpack that just a little bit, you can see how quickly that falls apart. Is like, what do you mean them? Like, who is everyone that you need to come out to, and what does that list look like? And where do you draw the line of I came out to everyone I needed to? You can't. That number is, the limit does not exist, as Mean Girls would say, which puts the power back into your hand that you get to draw that line. And one of the really cool things I saw in our community discussion today is people actively choosing to come out to some people and not come out to others. And I, to be like really vulnerable, I had a little bit of a cry when I read those comments, because I even personally had found it a bit of a failure that I hadn't come out to certain family members or certain friends, or that by doing so, I somehow let people down, or I didn't let enough people in, and I wasn't being authentic. And that being authentic meant I had to be an open book to everybody. That's not what authentic means. It was really quite beautiful. This is a slight side topic, but when I use this example when I'm trying to explain like authenticity to people, is like when you go talk to your grandma or your boss or your friend at the pub, you're going to use different language. You might call your friend at the pub like son of a bitch. You might call your grandma like, oh, hi, sunshine. You might call your boss ma'am. You know what I mean? Like, none of those are inauthentic. They're all perfectly appropriate versions of yourself in any given moment. And having a really thoughtful experience of coming out of who do I tell and when and how, and having them be different is just as authentic as like hiring the skywriter to put it in the sky. Chad's a big old bye baddie. and I love that idea of reclaiming that, like, I don't have to tell everyone to classify as I came out. That's so fucking beautiful. And I got really emotional when I read those comments today. So some examples of that were some people had decided to just talk to their spouse, right? They like, look, this is my person. I want them to know everything about me. I'll tell just my spouse. No one else needs to know. Some people said that they weren't comfortable telling family or friends, but they decided to make new friends in the queer community because it was a space where they could feel completely kind of unbridled in that experience of themselves. And then they didn't have to navigate a shift of expectations or a shift of relationship dynamics with people they've done life with for such a long time. They can still be a version of themselves that felt true in those scenarios. And I was like, this is the coolest. This is great. I was so proud that so many different people in the same conversation across Facebook, Reddit, and different places are talking about. Some people talked about it I haven't told my family, but I've told my partner and my friends, and they're talking about like with a lot of shame. And I understand that, like, do I understand that? There are parts of me that at times is like, oh man, like I love this person, but do I really love this person if I haven't told them everything about me? It's like, that doesn't change love. That like love is love is love is love. And it was just really cool to hear people go, I'm actually actively choosing where I choose to come out.
Exactly. And it's inviting someone in on something, and you control who gets to come in on that. And that is true across anything. I'm actually going to grab a line that queerphobic people will often use against queer people, and they'll say, oh, I don't really care who you're sleeping with. Like, I don't need to know what you're doing in the bedroom, right? You know, they're reducing sexuality down to what you're doing in the bedroom, which, especially for bi people, it can often be just completely irrelevant. But if we actually take that, we can turn that on its head and actually use that to empower us and be like, you know what? A lot of people really don't mind, don't want to know, don't need to know. I can still love this person and have that relationship, that family relation, that familial relationship, that friendship. And they don't need to know that part about me. A lot of people will choose that option for very, very valid reasons, for their safety, for anything. A lot of people might think that their sexuality might, see their sexuality as being just a very small part of themselves, and that's very valid. And so, don't need to tell them. So this space here is for all of the above, for people who do consider it a big part. And you can also, and people who consider it a small part. But, Chad, you mentioned that you can, and we've talked throughout this episode a bit, you can sort of dip your toe across the spectrum of what being out looks like. And that spectrum actually just never ends, because even I, who am out to, I believe the whole world knows that I'm bi. Having this podcast is probably a good way for people to find out. But, even I, still come out to people very regularly.
Yeah.
And it's always an interesting experience. And the more often you do it, the better prepared you are as well.
Yeah, one of the things that someone wrote in, and it's actually was a present theme across a few stories, was that the longer someone was out, the less friction they got from people. And so the initial coming out was quite daunting. And the conversations and the questions, like, you're going to get dumb questions or just ill-informed questions. You're going to get some things that perhaps quite hateful. But a lot of people said that, like, after a while, people just stopped caring because nothing changed, or at least nothing changed for them. But it might have been a revelation for somebody else. And so someone said that they and their partner were in an ethically non-monogamous relationship, and had been for some time. And so that was actually the more shocking part to their family. But the longer it went on, they just kind of accepted that it was the thing they don't understand, but that's what they do. They're just going to move on. Something that someone said that really resonated with me is the potential impact on your kids' life or the kids' social life, based on what their parents might think. And even or even on your partner's life. Like, I know that when I was first kind of been a little bit more out and proud about my sexuality, I definitely factored in, I don't want Heidi to be impacted. I don't want her to feel that she's going to get grilled by her friends or get shunned by people who, I mean, look, we met in the church. So, like, we have friends who are still in church. Or maybe she just has girlfriends who just don't get it because they're all straight folks with straight partners, and so it's just not part of their circle.
Or so I might just add in there, they
presumably straight with presumably
straight. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, and yes, as we've come to learn over the years, a lot of straight folks come out to Steve and I, and no circle of friends is safe. If you think you have a circle of friends that are all straight, introduce them all to us. At least one or two of them will come out to us in private. But yeah, I remember one time at the park, I was playing with my son, with his friend, and hanging out with parents. And they're like, "What do you do?" I was like, I work in marketing, or I work in branding, and I have a podcast. And I was like, "Oh, I didn't think that if I said podcast, they're going to ask what it's about." Now I have to decide on if I'm going to say what it's about explicitly, or it's about social issues, or if I'm going to be explicit and go, okay, now I'm watching them. Now I'm going, okay, how are we cool? Can they hang? Are these my people? Will that impact how freely they let their kid play with my kid? And that scares me as a parent. And so I resonated with that when someone wrote that in. But on this point, one of our listeners wrote in and said that what helped them a lot was they really prepared for the coming out, which I've never done. Preparation is not depends. As an ADHD baddie, I prepare for a lot of things that I don't do, and then for the things I do, I prepare almost nothing. It's very hard to manage. But they wrote out everything they wanted to say. They looked at content and resources like our podcast, other podcasts. They did counseling, which snaps for them. That's awesome. And that helped a lot for them, which is really, really cool. Yeah. So this like preparation, and the idea that you can like plan who, when, and how you come out is a really cool way to reclaim this experience of coming out late is by any means bad.
Yeah, there are lots of different ways to plan it out. And it depends on your own circumstances. Who you think needs to know, the different circles, you'd look at your inner circles, then go further out and just figure out how each part might take the news, where's the safest route. Something my dad, I love this bit of advice. It was business advice from my dad. but it's also general life advice, is flow like water. Just take the easiest route. If you hit a rock, you just go around it. You just flow, growth. Go with gravity. Go with what feels right. Because you'll definitely know as you're coming out, because you can take it as a process. Take it slow and gentle as you need, and
Totally.
have supports available. Go into therapy, amazing, and figure out what works best for you, because there is no proper way to do it, and there'll always be little mistakes. And actually, something you mentioned at the top of this section, Chad, that also resonated with me. It can take people some time to sort of digest it. And so even my closest friends, my best friends, when I came out, that a lot of them gave me no grief, but like 2 or 3 years after I came out, they actually came to me and told me, you know what, when you first came out, didn't really believe you, but just went, okay, sure, this is what you're telling me. Definitely believe you now. Definitely fully accept it. Like you are Steve and you are bi. And it's that. And over time, it does just settle in. You mentioned, just with time, these things will settle in.
Yeah, totally. And the idea of coming out being a one and done thing, it doesn't stop, but also you don't have to do it all at once in terms of explanation. Education often follows disclosure. And so you can come out on day X, and then you can have a conversation about your coming out on day X+1. And then you can have a conversation about bi plus community on day X+2. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be this big thing all in one go where you feel like, oh, if they leave this conversation not completely educated and walking away like a bi plus ally, that I've done some disservice to the bi plus community or my own coming out. Like I said in last week's episode, it took time for my partner to understand what it meant for me, what it meant for us together, what it meant to find community. And my partner became an incredible ally for the bi plus community, but it takes time. And this is someone who was already incredibly supportive. It's bizarre. Some people who aren't supportive can just go, cool, I don't care, and they move on. Like, it's going to be different for everyone and for the audience, but you get to draw the line on what out enough means. And for some listeners, that small circle is where pride lives. You don't have to broadcast it to everyone, and finding your little small circle of pride can be absolutely enough.
And I might make a really important note here. Your outness does not depend at all on someone else's acceptance of you. So for me, I would come out to people and it did not matter whether they accepted or believed it. A lot of our coming out as bi people is having people believe us. And I just I told myself really early on in my journey of coming out, I don't care if anyone believes me or not. I'm just putting this out there. I'm telling my truth. Whether they eat it up or not, that's none of my business. What they think is absolutely none of my business. I'm doing this for me. And I suppose a lot of people have called that authenticity, but for me, it was just like, I'm just doing my thing. And people recognize that. And like I said, it actually took a lot of people that had known me for years. I'd hidden it that well. A lot of people that had known me for years, it took them some time. But when you have that belief in yourself and that unwavering sort of just, this is who I am, people come on board. People do come on board.
Coming out to yourself really is, that's actually the biggest part of this, really.
It is. Yeah.
I should have planned the episode better, because that's a really great point, Steve. Coming out to yourself is all that matters, really.
Well, the whole point of this is a lot of people don't even, you might not be I held on to it. I held on to the secret for well over a decade, from when I realized in my very early, when I was about 12 or 13, I realized I was bi. Didn't come out until my late 20s. But some people, actually, it doesn't even click in their own mind until they're in their 50s, their 60s, their 70s. It doesn't click because there hasn't been, maybe there hasn't been that language introduced to them, that experience.
Oh my gosh.
You can't be what you can't see, right? And we're getting so much great exposure, but we're getting that exposure, especially amongst younger people. We're seeing a huge growth in younger people identifying as bi+. And then at the same time, because of this exposure, we're now seeing a lot more people more advanced in age realize that they themselves are also bi plus, recognizing themselves in those experiences. And it doesn't have to be a realization like, oh, I've been lying to myself or I've been lying to the world the whole time.
Totally. Yeah.
You can just say like, I think that might be me. And then you figure out what the next step is. But yeah, that's the coming out to yourself moment. And it doesn't have to be huge. It can just be like, oh yeah, cool. Sick.
So we are introducing a new part of the podcast format this season, which is a mid-episode break. The episodes can get a bit heavy or they can get a bit serious or sometimes a little bit too lovey-dovey. And so we're just going to introduce something in the middle just to, I know you can go make a tea while you listen to it and stretch and resettle your nervous system. We've got some good news to share. Steve, why don't you kick us off with the first little bit of good news?
We do. This is awesome. So it's actually following on from some good bi news from late last year. So late last year, Mitch Brown, a Western Australia former AFL player, for our overseas friends, that is Australian rules football. It is a national religion here. And he came out as bi alongside his female partner and female ex-partner and children. And it was extraordinary. So the first ever that AFL has existed for over 100 years, and there's never been a single out queer player in the men's league. In the women's league, they're strides ahead. And so the first queer player was bi, that was Mitch Brown. But then just recently, last month in March, we had former Brisbane Lions player Lee Riswick came out as gay. So we've now got our first out gay AFL player, former player. And I think the really exciting thing for me here, for many of us, is that Mitch Brown, the bi player, has been alongside Lee at every step. And I just seeing that solidarity between gay and bi people, a gay man and a bi man in such a hyper-masculine environment, being professional sports, professional ball sports. Coming out in solidarity, it has just been so extraordinary to watch, and seeing Lee speak about his own experiences and also how they have mirrored Mitch's as well. I think it gives the public so much great insight into the uniqueness of both experiences, but then the shared similarities. And I think the floodgates might be opening, Chad. I think
we said this on our sports episode. It's like there is a lot of courage that is required to come out so publicly in such a famously unqueer space. But what if everyone did it at once? What if everyone just went, you know what, me too? Everyone could go, oh, I'm the problem, actually. It's not these queers. That would be really cool. And hey, only a few months after Mitch came out, we got our first gay out player. And like you said, over 100 years. And in only a matter of months, we've had two, which is incredible. So snaps for both for both of them. And an extra shout out to Mitch, who just today announced that he and his partner are expecting a little bub, which is really beautiful.
And I think Mitch listens to the pod. So shout out as well.
Mitch, come on, let's do an episode.
We would love that. Actually, everyone go into Mitch Brown's DMs and request him to go on to Give It To Me By. But, you and I have both spoken to him online and he's been just absolutely incredible. And we're really excited for Lee's journey as well and what that means for gay men in these hyper-masculine environments.
Yeah, super cool. Steve and I engaged with a very cool project and opportunity to advise on a national level when it comes to bi plus health, which is very, very exciting. All of this is on the back of, we could say what it's on the back of, right? Because we talked about it all last year on the podcast. Yeah, on the back of the BISH study. So this is the largest bi plus sexual health HIV study, and it's just phenomenal work. The data, the insights that have been pulled from all of you who gave your time to share your experiences is just insane. The amount of cool stuff that is in there. Not only are the insights really cool, but just the survey itself was the most affirming experience. I've never filled out a survey that honored the BioPlus experience so thoughtfully. But I just wanted to share really explicitly that when surveys come out and you see, take 5 minutes to fill out this survey, this university is doing this kind of study, those things don't get many people participating. Like, generally speaking, it is really hard to recruit people for research. And also because they're usually looking for a particular cohort. They're looking for bi-plus men, or they're looking for bi-plus women between 25 and 35. Like, it's usually pretty specific. And so what is really encouraging and empowering is to have taken part in something, to have heard of it, that it is happening at all, taken part in it, and now to be seeing it manifest into a national, I can't say what, but
a work of a frame variety that will inform massive amounts of future work.
Yeah, basically. And will have direct impact and improvements on the health of BioPlus people around the nation is astounding. And so anytime, I don't care how busy I am, and I've had the worst brain fog, like grief brain in the last year. If someone says, hey, do you have time for a study? I'm like, yeah, what is it? Like, I'll do it right now. Sometimes you win $100 because Acon want you to really do something. but it is just so cool to see something that takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, turn into something that can impact real people's lives in a really meaningful way. And I'm so grateful to be a part of it. So grateful to be invited to advise on it. It's something I didn't think I had the capacity to do. Steve encouraged me to be a part of it, and being a part of it got my feet wet to come back to the podcast. I was feeling a lot of feelings about coming back to the podcast. So that's some good news on both fronts.
Yeah, definitely. I think on that, like, a lot of people won't read themselves into it. So you'd see a bisexual health study and you're thinking, but well, I only have sex with one gender. I'm not behaviorally bisexual. No. We really want to hear from you. If you haven't had sex in 10 years, why would I fill out a sexual health survey? No, we really want to hear from you. Oh, I think I'm bi, but I'm not out, on the topic of this, but I'm not out as bi. We definitely want to hear from you. Yeah, your voice matters, absolutely. Your voice matters, and it doesn't just matter in the context of that study that you're completing. Like Chad said, it informs so much more. It can create absolute waves. You can create real change by doing these things. And you're involving yourself. That's one way to be involved in the BIPLUS community as well. It can be a really affirming experience to be able to say, you know what? I didn't think I'd be able to take part in this sort of research, but I just did it. And I've had people tell me I felt more bisexual filling that survey out. So absolutely, like Chad said, please join in.
You think about it, if 85 people fill out a survey, 200 people fill out a survey, whatever it is, and you're one person, that is a huge percentage. You know what I mean? Like, let's say 50 people fill out a survey, you're 2% of that survey base. That's incredible. Like, your experience can influence so much. Yeah, it's so empowering to know that your voice can be heard, and not only heard, but appreciated.
I'm just going to add on to that as well. Let's just keep on adding layer on layer. Even on a massive survey, we got over 2,000 people respond to Bish. And, you can fill out little bits, like, describe your experiences in this. And a lot of people will be like, oh, no one's actually going to read this. No. I was on the research team for that, and we read every single
one.
And we cared about every single word, because our team of researchers, almost all of us were bi, and your words entered our soul, and we are doing our best to honor them, and not only honor them, actually create real change. So real people read what you write. Real people read those responses. And we care, and we do something, and we really do something with it.
And people filled them out at length as well. Like, sometimes when I fill out a survey, I'm like, no one's going to read this. I'll give the bare minimum. She's giving nothing. And one of the other people on the study told me, no, there were some lengthy submissions, and we read them, and we appreciated them because it paints a really specific picture of the people participating.
Yeah, paragraphs, and we want paragraphs.
That's so
Also,
cool.
if you can't be bothered, don't manage this. Just click the little boxes as well. All good.
Skip.
I'm
Next.
all about ticking boxes. But
Great.
So, Chad, like with coming out at any point in your life, but especially later in life, I know for me, even though I came out as comparatively early-ish in my life, there can be a notion of grief. There's a before and after. I'm just going to throw words out there. A before and after. Who was I then? Who am I now? Sort of question, maybe. And you can love your life and still grieve the version of yourself that maybe didn't get to date or explore or grow up as an out bi+ person. And that grief is real and important as well. That grief can power you. You can use it, but it doesn't cancel out. It doesn't cancel out your life. And for me personally, all the experiences that I had, all the negative ones, all of those things led up to the person I am now. And I can look in the mirror and say, I like my life. I like myself. And I'm so proud. And so all of those bad things that happened, along with all the good, are all worth it.
Yeah, this relates quite a bit to last week's episode about folks who are bi in a monogamous relationship. I guess I really wanted to name some of the parts that might feel a bit messy, or the parts that people might feel a bit of shame or guilt around, because that's something that we read a lot of in the responses to this episode topic in our community, is having this curiosity about sex or about dating with other genders later in life, but while in a relationship where those relationship rules are fixed, perhaps in monogamy, that can be really hard. And it can be really hard to talk about. You might feel guilty for even having that want. Sometimes you feel like you're betraying a life that you love, and you don't want to sacrifice or in any way diminish that life or cause instability in that life. Yeah, a lot of people voice that they wish they had known when they were younger so they could have experienced more before they settled down. And that is, I really want to make that is a very common experience. Like, you are not alone in that experience. That is very common, but it's also very common that it's not talked about. Yes, in the last week's episode, we talked about monogamy. We talk often about non-monogamy or open relationships. There are many ways that experience can manifest for you. They may feel appropriate to explore now. They may not. They may in the future. They may not. That doesn't change your experience of if only, had I just, what if. Those things can sit really heavy, and that's really tricky. I mean, like I've said a million times, I was in a monogamous relationship with my partner. I had no intention of not being, but attraction can swing, and during those times, you're like, oh, been 10 years. It's been 5, and my plan is to do this for the rest of my life. So it's going to be another 50 years, for me, I found that the affirmation in bi community was very helpful. But I want to make sure we kind of honor that experience that is really tricky. We had a few people write into us. This one person said that she had grief that she didn't know sooner, wishes she'd had room to experience more sexually before settling down. She really values her partner and says it's really hard to ask someone or expect someone to change the rules of a 10-year relationship. And that need that she feels is not spoken out loud. She feels really alone and really ashamed for having those feelings. And now I would suspect that a lot of people feel that way too.
Look, I'm as sex positive as they get, right, Chad? But I think there's a lot in our culture, and especially in queer culture, and perhaps speaking as a queer man, this is informing what I'm about to say, but there is a lot of pressure placed on us to have sex, to be sexually liberated, to to explore. And I know that for me personally, my biggest regret of not coming out as bi earlier was that I put myself in really dangerous and hurtful and harmful situations when I was only out as gay, forcing myself into situations, and that really harmed me and will harm me for the rest of my life. But I've been able to process that through therapy, and being able to, not look back on it with regret, but rather being able to accept that that happened, accept that it has formed who you are. We had someone write in, which I think is a really nice way of looking at it, because I mentioned that there are all of these pressures on us wanting to have, being sexually liberated, but I think more people need to look at what they personally want and need, and actually, I've used that word, scrutinize what you really need. It is your wanting to experiment, can that remain as fantasy? Can you live with that, or do you actually need to act on it? Are you feeling outside pressure, like you're seeing all of this stuff, heated rivalry, you're getting this, which is a very big fad at the moment. If we're listening to this in 5 years' time, we'll be like, what was that? But at the moment, we're seeing all this stuff about sexual liberation, and I think it's fantastic. I'm hugely sex positive, but that's not a broad rule. You don't have to go out and have sex with as many people as you want because you're bi. There are those tropes as well that bi people, to be bi is to be sexually liberated and have sex with everything with legs, and that is false. That is wrong.
Some people don't have legs, so
yes, if it's true for you, go ahead, definitely. But don't ever feel pressured. Don't at whatever point in your life when you come out, just because other people are doing this doesn't mean that you have to. I really want to take that pressure off people, because I know I have had a lot of that sexual experience, and I look back on that with regret. I wish I was less sexually liberated. That sounds very strange, but I actually realized I had placed a lot of pressure on myself because of society's expectations around being sexually explorative. And if I had my time again, I would actually choose a much calmer life.
Can I just pause there and say thank you for sharing such a vulnerable thing? It's quite vulnerable and really raw, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. I feel like it's not a take that people often give. I feel like not only are we have these pressures to perform or pressures to explore, but pressures to defend it as well, and say no, I was allowed to, and I'm supposed to, and so like ha ha ha. It's a really, I think, a refreshing take to hear.
Yeah, well, because I hear a lot of bi guys especially who have been in a relation, 10-year long relationship with their wife, and they now say, oh, I want to go out to beats and go to saunas and do all of this. And I'm like, I understand that urge, because this is that is something that is painted as going out there and having all of this sex as a queer man is put up as desirable and as the archetype, and it's what you should do. But as someone who has lived that life, it was actually extremely damaging. It was actually extremely painful. And I did what I thought, I did what society and the gay community more specifically was telling me what I should have done. And if I had my time again, I wouldn't have done that. I would have actually chosen my own way. And so, I suppose this is a be careful what you wish for moment. Be aware of what your needs are, and don't listen to what the community or society is telling you to do.
I'm very cautious to hold monogamy up as like something that we should all be shooting for, and I'm aware that we just did an episode on monogamy. Please, if you listen to this and that's not something that you're aiming for, it's not part of your life, know that we are both very pro non-monogamy as well. That's totally fine. But there is this big idea of the grass is greener on the other side. That like if only I had, if I just, all that kind of stuff. One of the reframes I gave to myself years ago on a different topic was the grass is greener where you water it. If you tend to your garden, it will be green. That can feel dismissive if you are in a time of your life where you are yearning or searching for something else. But really kind of recognize that you have the power to affirm yourself. You have the power to make yourself feel whole, to make your relationship feel whole, and to write your own rules is incredibly liberating, but it takes you have to have your own revelation. I can't have it for you. No one can have that revelation for you. And I mean, you said before that is it worth it thing is, this is just an analogy. You hear from people who cheat on their partners that they regret it. They're like, it wasn't worth it. Like, what, at the end of the day, sex is sex is sex is sex. Like sex is awesome. Like, it's good fun, and we find ways to enjoy yourself in numerous ways. But I would almost challenge folks to look at, like, what is beneath the sexual desire. Is it actually a desire for connection? Is it a desire to be recognized as bi plus and queer from somebody else? Is it a desire to feel free and a sense of like recklessness? Is it like, what is the underlying desire, and can you find that within your relationship? If in this case you are not looking to break your monogamy contract with your partner, because I know for me, like, sure, I have desires to be sexually active with men, hook up with men or whatever it might be, or with non-binary folks. That wasn't on the cards. It's not something I wanted to do while I was in a relationship with my partner. And so it's like, cool, what does this mean for me? It's like, oh, I want to be recognized as a man who doesn't subscribe to typical male contracts of masculinity, expectations of performance, expectations of dominance, that kind of stuff. I want to be able to play with that, and that the fluidity of that. Oh, all of those things can be explored within my monogamous relationship with my partner. All of those things can be explored in that framework. And so that was a huge way to break that down for both of us. And so we both got to participate in my bisexual affirmation within our relationship. We both got to experience what queer love looked like, because our relationship was a queer one. Yeah, I feel like there's so many layers to shame, so many layers to grief. And as someone who has a very deep understanding of grief at the moment, for context, I haven't said it in this episode, my partner passed away 9 months ago from ovarian cancer. I am really in the depths of hell when it comes to grief at the moment. Is that you get to decide what that looks like for you, and other people will look at you and look at your experience of grief and shame and all those things, and they're going to make up their mind, and they're going to have judgments. They're going to think whatever they want, and what other people think is none of your business. What you think,
none of our business.
Yeah, how can you find steadiness within your own self and your own identity, and hopefully with your partner as well?
Exactly. And I'll finish off here on this lovely comment that came in, because this person that wrote in, they have that grief, they hold that grief for not living a bi life when they were young and single, but they understand that they can't live with regret their whole life, and understand that if they had that life, they might not have the spouse and children they have that they absolutely love and adore today. And so, understanding that there can be two truths exist at once, this duality. Yes, you could have missed out on things, but then you could have missed out on these things.
Life is about sliding doors moments. You just don't know. You have to make decisions. You have to make calls. The only way to know who you are is to make a decision and commit. That's what life is, really. Now, a lot of folks who wrestle with coming out later in life, one of the things I hear is they don't look like the typical queer kids at Pride. They're not dyeing their hair blue and pink and green, and they're not getting piercings and tattoos all over their body like Chad is. And how do they find pride as a later in life bi, or coming out later in life as bi? And I guess it's this topic of loudness doesn't equal authenticity, right? Like you don't have to start a podcast. You don't have to march in the parade. You don't have to walk down the street and say, "Hi, I'm bi," like we often do.
Which like we literally do.
You can find authenticity and support and pride in so many micro ways and so many private ways. And so we want to kind of bring this episode back before we leave you with all these deep thoughts of how you can find some joy, some happiness, some like sparkle. Like, for example, we had an episode with Amber Loomis from the Sydney Bi Plus Network, maybe episode 2 or 3. One of our all-time favorite people brought us together. And they had this really wonderful example in their bylight where someone had put out a whole bunch of bisexual stickers in their office workspace. They have like a desk where people can put out paraphernalia. And they put them out. And by the end of the day, they were all gone. Like all the bi stickers were snatched up because that little token was someone's pride moment. They could put it on a mug, they could put it on their keep cup or whatever it might be, on their laptop, and they could tell the world in their own little small way, that's me, that's who I am. And I love that example. It doesn't have to be go get the bi tattoo, which I mean, I'm here for it. I'm covered in tattoos.
Can I also say, like the bi flag, so the bi flag or the pansexual flag, they're not as well understood as, say, the rainbow flag. So usually when you've got that pin on, it's the people who know, the people who would love you that will understand it. And then other people would just be like, I don't know what that means. Okay, whatever. And so it's actually, I found kind of safe. Like I will wear my bi pride pin at a queer event and people, a queer person will ask me, oh, what's that? And I'm like, I'll tell you, but I now understand that you're not close family. You are family, but you're not close family. And so you can actually, this is a little hack, definitely.
I actually make a point. If someone is wearing a bi or a pan pin, no matter how busy I am, my kid could be screaming the cafe down, and I will make a point. Hey, I see your pin. You're wonderful. Have a great day. Like I will call it out because I know that you're wearing that in a little bit of defiance, a little bit of pride, a little bit of resistance, and I want to make sure that you're seen for it. Those small signals, actually, I forget because I'm so used to the bi plus flag that it is like not well known in broader circles.
It's not the same as wearing a rainbow pin. It's not the same, everyone. It's bi people, most bi people will know it. And usually only bi people will know it, or our really close allies. So it's quite a safe signal to use.
Yeah, that's such a good one. Another one that Steve mentioned kind of at the top of the episode are puns. Bi plus folks, for some reason, have latched onto puns. Now, the judge is still out whether or not they're good puns, funny puns, or lame dad joke puns.
No, they're definitely bad.
As a funny, sometimes unfunny, sometimes dad, I'm here for them somewhat. There's a lot of bi pun merch that you can find online that the right people again will get the nod, will get the wink.
So you're on the fence about bi puns.
Hey. On the fence
about being on
the fence.
A bisexual that can't make up their mind or come to a decision or
is it bisexual or is it ADHD? Babe, I think it's both.
Is there an overlap between the two, Chad? Maybe.
Hey, well, speaking of tattoos, I was recently I'm bisexual. Obviously, I think you know that by this point.
Oh,
I'm also covered in tattoos, and it wasn't until recently that I've discovered that there are quite a few bi tattoos, and obviously there's the bi flag and stuff, but I didn't realize that a lot of bi women get snake tattoos. My friend Hannah told me that. And so anytime I see a bi baddie covered in tats, I'm like, that's a snake tattoo. Is she family? I've also a lot of moths or butterflies. I have both. I have a snake and a moth, a death moth. And so you might see some of those out in the wild. There might be a little, I don't know how true it is though, because my other friend has a snake tattoo and we had to break the news to her. They're like, hey babe, I think you're bi. She's like, maybe one day.
I just have a bottle of poppers tattooed on my chest.
Yeah.
Jungle juice of those who are familiar. If you are not, I suppose you can Google it.
I don't have it tattooed on my chest. I just have a shelf of it in my bathroom. The other cool thing about bisexuality is, I'm going to say cool thing, but it's not so cool. A lot of bi people aren't out, right? That's not cool. However, what that means is on our earlier episodes, we talked a lot about being the bi lighthouse. That by you being proud and you being out, it gives other people permission to do so as well. And they will look to you. And that's why I said before, people come out to us in droves. Chad,
yeah.
I know you would understand. I'm bi and I'm dating a woman. Hell yeah. Person's name who I won't disclose. Like, also, it's always private. You can come out to us.
Yes.
But you might find that you actually know tons of bi people that just aren't out. And you being out, you can create a little cute community. And we're big on community building. And you might find a lot of people over time start acknowledging your bisexuality. You might find the people who are really supportive of you initially might have a little bit of fruit in them.
I think I now know the moth reference. Like moths to a flame. Like if you are the flame, you're going to have bi moths coming at you. Truly though, like if you're out and you're feeling, if you're worried that you're not going to find people, your community or people like you before you come out, you will soon find out that you're most likely wrong in that assessment, because when you come out, they will find you.
And for context, we haven't said it in this episode. 60 to 70% of the LGBTQ plus community are bi plus, right? Like that changes depending on demographic, geographic, all that kind of stuff. But 60 to 70% are bi plus. If you look around at the people that you know, it is more than none. Since I've come out and lived life openly this way, I have a nice little network of secret bi friends. It's a sort of almost like little Rolodex. Remember those? Actually, wait, this is the later in life bias. You guys know what Rolodexes are. I got a little Rolodex of secretly bisexual people, and it can be really affirming to actually know people who are bi but not out.
Like one way to figure out how many might be around you. So you mentioned that 60 to 70% of queer people are bi plus. So think about how many gay people you know in your life and multiply that by 3. And that's how many bi people are actually in your life, because there are 3 times as many bi people as there are gay people. And so that's a good way. Yeah, that's a good way to sort of gauge the numbers around you. Yeah. And so, yeah, we are everywhere. And no matter where you are in your stage in life, no matter your relationship status, your familial status, your religion, where you live, there is no right or wrong way to do this. There's no rule book, but there is a community of people here who have very little in common except for one little thing, that we're also bi. And we would love for you to join us.
Yeah, visibility is a spectrum of choices through life. You have a great amount of control over what that visibility looks like for you. And that control is empowering. It shouldn't be something to shame. I've only come out to certain people. I've only come out to this person. That's not a bad thing. It is what is comfortable for you. There's not one big celebrate me Instagram moment. Community can exist in community groups, in private DMs, on local groups, on listening to podcasts. This is community. You're not the only one in the boat. You're not the only person experiencing that experience. And hopefully this episode can show you that like some of the stories that we've shared of people who've written in might echo and mirror your experience. And you deserve that community. You deserve to be recognized by yourself and by others as proudly bi.
By yourself and by others. That's be bi. And of course, if you'd like to see some of these examples, we only got to mention a few of the comments, but if you join our Facebook group, that's the Give It To Me Bi community, you can have a look through some of these people's experiences and see how they've dealt with things or how they haven't dealt with things, and relate to them, learn something. And your bisexuality doesn't have to be external. It can also be internal. You can just embody it within yourself. And that's often the first step. That's often that first step. And that is fully valid. And it's the most beautiful feeling. And it's something special to you. And you don't have to share that with anyone at all.
Absolutely. Private recognition of your identity is super important. As you said earlier in the episode, bi-plus people are undercounted and understudied. Your story, your private story, your potentially what you believe to be atypical story in a survey or research sample helps future evidence match real lives and means that you and people like you will be counted in the future. And including later coming out and potential outness in those experiences really helps. So if you see universities or community surveys calling for bi-plus participants, please consider doing them. I know it can seem boring, but it actually shifts what gets funded and what clinicians hear. A great example of this is we have the census coming up in Australia soon. That is a private experience, or mostly private experience within your household. If you can somehow swing and are comfortable to do it, I really recommend counting your voice as bisexual, so the national numbers reflect your experience as well. But that is about it for us for today. Hopefully this episode hit home. Hopefully this was a nice one. Yeah, I feel like I'm really sick this week, so I'm kind of fading. I'm about to hit the hay. I've had like COVID, but not COVID, and my throat is razor blades. So I want to keep talking, but I need to go to bed.
Go to bed, Chad. Go to bed. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening in on this episode. Thank you for the generosity to everyone that wrote in. Again, join our Facebook group, the Give It To Me Bi community, and go gentle with yourself. Be gentle with those around you. Water your grass and enjoy all the joys that make being bi so special. Well, that's us for this episode. We love you.
Lots of kisses, lots of cuddles.
I'm going to get into bed in a second.
Me too.
All right. Love you all. Love you, Chad.
See you, folks. Love you. Give It To Me Bi acknowledges that we live and work on Gadigal land. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and pay our respects to the elders past and present. Sovereignty was never ceded.